and welcome to AGRU Trends, AGRU America's video podcast featuring insights about infrastructure for a sustainable future. This podcast is hosted by AGRU America's Chief Operations Officer, Edgardo Cornejo, and General Manager of AGRU Chile and Brazil, Francisco Pizarro. Together, they invite guests who help peel back the curtain to reveal the world of engineering plastics. From engineers and designers to installers and end users, we hope AGRU Trends can be a useful tool for you to learn how you and AGRU can build a better future. Let's build it together.
Evening, everybody. Good to see you all in our third series of our AGRU Trends series. AGRU Trends is the video podcast series exploring the role of engineering plastics in creating infrastructure for a sustainable future. For decades, AGRU has taken pride in delivering exceptional products and services for our customers and business partners. Today, we are thrilled to bring our knowledge to a wider audience through AGRU's Trends. In this first series, we're going to explore the role of geosynthetics. So we have together, as usual, Edgardo Cornejo, our COO of AGRU America. And we have the pleasure to also be with us, Anthony Johnson, also our technical business unit manager for AGRU America, who has a lot of experience both in the technical and sales area. So will definitely be such a great source of insights for today's first episode of this series. Edgardo, good to see you.
Good to see you, Francisco. Thanks a lot for all your efforts always. And AJ, welcome for this video podcast. Again, trying to introduce AGRU products and helping the audience to better engage with how can we help them with applications and product solutions.
Yeah, absolutely, guys, and thank y'all both very much for having me. I was excited.
Excellent. So I think we're gonna go through some sort of questions, and first will be, why do geosynthetics exist? What is that word? What it means and how you see it from your perspective?
So geosynthetics exist basically, if you really want to boil it down, they're basically to protect our environment and our water supply, really. Geosynthetics, it can be a complicated word, and it encompasses a whole body of products that's really become its own scientific discipline over the years in a way. We think about the word geosynthetics, so geo, earth, synthetics, man-made. So they're materials that are manufactured and produced to help with various different issues with the environment, typically protection, soil reinforcement, drainage, that kind of thing, a whole wealth of different applications.
Great. Yes, it's kind of a complicated word, like you said, geosynthetic, but good explanation, Now, can you give us kind of some examples of where you use them and what is that for?
Yeah, so just picking a few out of the picture that we have up here. So, different areas. You see a picture of a pond over here. So geosynthetics can be used to line man-made ponds, help protect our water supply in landfills. They can be used for revetments, roadway reinforcements. You see different pictures, the bus at the bottom here, the train over on the side, the truck at the top, just a whole lot of different areas. Containment of waste in landfills is another big thing that geosynthetics are used for.
So if you wouldn't have geosynthetics, what would you have? Let's say in the past when geos were not available, what was used, do you know?
Well, it depends on your application, For instance, in landfills, typically just a layer of compacted clay is what was used in the past. Since the inception of geosynthetics, it's technology and our ability to be to the environment have really advanced, because before geosynthetics, for a lot of these applications and things that we do now that we know we need to do to protect our environment and our water supply, they just really weren't possible, you know. So the answer to that question is, in a lot of cases, nothing.
So we can definitely say, Jay, that geosynthetics also contribute dramatically to the reduction of the carbon footprint, I may guess, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, you know, a really good example is, like I just said, you know, if you're lining a landfill, like in this picture here is a good example. You know, back in the day, you would line this with a layer of compacted clay. That's, you know, essentially it. Um, Geosynthetics can be used in different applications to kind of cut down on the amount of carbon impact to the environment. So, for instance, if you have to transport a lot of clay or soil for a landfill closure, but geosynthetics are an alternative option. You know, you could cut down your number of trucks that you use and your carbon emissions from those trucks by orders of magnitude. There are a lot of different ways that geosynthetics can be used to reduce that carbon footprint. And, you know, their longevity is another big point there. You know, a lot of geosynthetics in different applications, their projected lifetimes are in the hundreds of years. With other natural structures, you just don't have that without a high amount of maintenance and upkeep. And then secondary and tertiary impacts on our environment that come along with that. You know?
So in that infographic that we have in front of us there, I think that's kind of the water cycle. So everything will go back to the groundwater in some way, somehow we could pick it back. So let's imagine if we have a landfill and it's not protected, you're gonna have leachate going down through the groundwater, and then some sort of contamination will start happening. So geosynthetics will contain that and protect that groundwater quality, so that at the end of the day, that life cycle, including the water cycle, it's in a better position. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. You know, um, geosynthetics protect us from a lot of nasty stuff. You know, if you're just, again, in a landfill application or a mining application where you might have heat treat pads, you're protecting essentially our groundwater and our water supply itself from those contaminants. And this stuff that can seep into our water supply, I mean, that can, you know, it can affect the whole area's, the health of the whole area. Yeah.
And this is very critical, just like you said, AJ, before going to the next question, because you mentioned mining, and mining is, let's say, is business, is a crucial line area of development in most of South American countries, especially copper and now lithium, which a lot in the trends, and both minerals extraction requires a deep use of especially geomembranes for the protection, especially in the case of copper for the tailings, especially in order to contain the tailings that are produced in the extraction of copper. So at the end, we are this kind of solution protect the underground in order not to the tailings reach reach the groundwater in the areas that are next to civilization or other area development. So this is crucial, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it just, you know, thinking back to, yeah, I 50, 60, 100 years ago, you know, the fact that some of these businesses and some of these different applications, landfills, mining, went without these products it's amazing to me. You know, I mean, the effect that they've had on our environment really can't be understated, and what they do for everybody. You know, um, geosynthetics is always, it's kind of a niche industry. Um, it's a smaller industry, but the products used are so widespread, and I mean anybody on the side of the street, really, if you go talk to them, their life has been bettered by these products in some way, shape, or form. They might not have any idea what they are, but they're in use right by them somewhere. Whether
So
it be in,
if we take a look here, AJ,
yeah,
just for a quick time, you see in this graph all these buildings that have sewers. Then
right,
you have a landfill to the left side. Then you have a gas station. You have industrial storage. You have public water supplies. Everything wants to go down to the groundwater, and everything in this case is being protected in some way somehow with these geosynthetics. We might not necessarily think about it, but everything wants to go down to that water cycle, to follow that water cycle. So it's very, very important. Make sure we have that covered.
yeah, exactly, Edgardo. And I think that picture does a really good job of kind of showing the reach that the products themselves have. Because I mean, just you know, look at this. Just how many different applications and areas where these materials are used in. We could probably talk about this picture half the day and go through each and every single instance and what products could be used for this and in what different ways. But I mean, it looks like my city or your city or our neighborhood, and they're everywhere, these days.
So in summary, will be less contamination in the groundwater by keeping this type of geosynthetics like the ones in the screen, protecting those applications in several different engineered specs, because this is not just a product that you say, hey, I want to use this one. This is under regulations, but we might discuss that in a different topic.
Yeah, and that's true, and that's a whole another topic is some of the regulations that are in place these days for geosynthetics. Um, you know, but yeah, the products that you see up here, and I think this is probably a good point too to mention that we've talked a lot about containment, but like you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, geosynthetics, that term itself covers a whole range of different products that are used for different applications. Like if we go back to that last picture that we had, you have your typical geomembrane, which is usually a polyethylene based material, either high density polyethylene or linear low density polyethylene. Um, on the left hand side. Then on the right, you have a geocomposite, which is high density polyethylene net laminated on either side by polypropylene geotextiles. That material serves a completely different purpose than the material on the left. The material on the right works in conjunction with the material on the left to kind of provide this complete engineered system in a different application, or by itself in some cases.
So we're focusing from one side in containment. I see drainage. I
Mm-hmm.
see filtering. That's a lot of functions.
Yeah, there is a lot of functions. Drainage, containment, filter, protection, and by protection I mean some kind of physical, mechanical protection. A whole wealth of different things there. Reinforcement of soils, another big one.
So there are different layers of geosynthetics for each application. Like if we have this one in here, could you explain like in a simplistic way why you have like different layers there in the bottom and one layer at the top? What is that?
Yeah, it's essentially what we just said. You mentioned engineered systems, and in a lot of these applications, that's exactly what it is. The system itself is comprised of different components of geosynthetics, which in themselves serve different functions and are different products. So you have a couple of materials here, your geosynthetic clay liner and your geomembrane. Those serve as your containment layer. Your geocomposite typically serves as your your layer that you use to convey fluids from one place to another. At the top, you know, same thing. You have your AGRU microdrain, again, another containment system, um, and so on and so forth. All these different products, you know, they really work together to give you one solution. They might be their own components and they might serve their own functions, but geosynthetics as a whole provide these engineered systems.
Okay.
And maybe we can go a little bit about who's the one that at the end, who typically uses these geosynthetics? Who's the one that needs those uh, business lines? I mean, energies at mining or inside those areas? Who are the ones that are interested in getting to know the solutions? AJ, if you can tell us a little bit.
Um, they're using a lot of different businesses, Francisco. So you mentioned energy, you know, power companies with combustion coal residuals. They're used in that industry quite a bit. Different municipal solid waste applications. They're actually, Edgardo mentioned it, in a lot of these different industries, they're regulated at this point, at least here in the United States. Um, you know, mining companies, some of your larger mining companies, either here or in South America, use geosynthetics essentially um, all the time. Uh, I could go on and on. A lot of civil engineering applications, you know, geotextiles, geogrids are used for roadway and soil reinforcement. So civil engineers, you know, companies that work on our infrastructure that we see every day. You know, there's geosynthetics that are used in the protection of concrete structures. So, you know, your manholes, things like that. Geosynthetics can be used to extend the lifetime of those structures. Um, Basically, anywhere you see civil engineering or environmental engineering being done, um, there's a very good chance that geosynthetics are being used.
So, do you think it could be fair to say that the top two applications for geosynthetics, number one, in my personal opinion, is landfills, and number two is mining, and both of them has a lot of regulations, but I think those are the top two applications for now. Who's going to use it? It might be related to who is the owner of the project, but in this case, engineer will specify this.
Mhm.
There's a regulation to follow, and end users, will have the finished product like a landfill. In the U.S., you need one landfill to cover any type of neighborhood needs, and population keeps growing, landfills keep growing. Precious metals are important as well for the economy, and extraction of gold, copper, silver, or now these new minerals like lithium are getting
Hmm.
very popular for uh, the development of new technologies. So, do you think that's fair to say those could be the top two applications for geosynthetics?
Yeah. And you know, the waste industry has used those for quite some time now, and yeah, they're very widespread. Like we talked about, you know, they're regulated here. Mining, energy, all those are huge markets that use geosynthetics. And they're kind of touched and used by people on down the line. Like Edgardo, you mentioned, you know, it may start with your regulator who regulates them. Well, then you have your design engineer who's actually working on the job and who's going to specify what geosynthetics to use. They're going to go through all their design work, their calculations, these kinds of things. They're going to tell someone what exactly they need to use there. You know, then you have your installers, you know, completely different set of people who come in and actually have the experience and have worked with these materials through their career, and they know how to install them and to make sure that they perform their proper function um, once they get out there in the field.
Excellent. Also, other applications that we have seen over time. Of course, the more popular ones, like I was mentioning, is landfills and mining. But also, you have the energy, like you mentioned, Anthony. Power companies will use a lot of geosynthetics to contain their coal ash if they are producing energy via that route. And also, if you want to extract phosphates, there are heavy chemicals that you gotta protect the groundwater. So I mean, there's more specific applications, but with those four, maybe the audience can have a better picture of where geosynthetics typically get used.
Yeah, and those are the big ones. Those are your sites where you see these huge areas. Several acres or more, where just like this picture that we have up there, where just a massive amount of geosynthetics is being used. But even more than that, you have the smaller guys. Like I had a customer come in today to have a conversation where they're using geosynthetics as a vapor barrier um, underneath a military training facility. And that's a much smaller scale than what you see up here with or you see it, like you said, some of your phosphate companies, some of your larger energy concerns or waste. But even these smaller scale operations, these smaller scale projects use geosynthetics as well.
And this picture is very
And
important,
I will just,
for yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, I would like just to also add, AJ and Edgar, that you mentioned two areas of development that are extremely, two business that are extremely important related to landfills and mining. I mean, and both are, nevertheless, they have been using geosynthetics for a while. Those have definitely a tendency to keep being used since, of course, landfills at the end are related to the population. As we have more population, the use of trash and of course the landfills are of course increased over the time. Also, the regulations behind the use and the construction of landfills in the case of mining, of course, nevertheless, all the precious metals, lithium now is on the trend. Uh, all of them requires a high volume, important amount of square meters of geosynthetics. And of course, those metals will, due to electromobility, will definitely are going to be used in the future. So, and the other aspect that I want to reinforce is that you mentioned who is asking for these type of solutions, and you mentioned maintenance, you talk about project managers, talk about operations, engineering, and all of those counterparts are extremely technical driven, and of course at the end uh, reinforces the value of these solutions in order to make a sustainable, more productive, and efficient engineering. That's at the end what all we are looking for.
And if we want to kind of summarize it in that picture that we have over there, at the bottom of that picture, of that landfill that we were looking at, um, you have geosynthetics at the bottom that were protecting the groundwater. There was some material get entered in that landfill over time, and then it's completely closed. So you only see green slopes already there, and it's about to finish, closing it at the top. And the idea is to leave the site as close as how you get the site in the original time. So it contains specific waste, and it's fully closed with natural vegetation there, and with the idea of, again, improve the life cycle of that site. So I think that it's a basic, very good conversation that we have been able to have here with AJ concepts and complementary information with Francisco and myself. So thanks for that,
Absolutely.
AJ.
Yeah, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. It was fun.
Yeah, we're gonna continue this next episode with a little bit of the quality of the geosynthetics. That's a very interesting topic because everybody can produce, but not everyone can have or achieve the right
Thank
quality
you very
levels.
much, and
So
we look to forward to see you all very, very soon in a new episode of this third series of AGRU Trends.
thank you.